The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Hoop Ballers and Sharky Nation. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Today in Sports Betting. This is a kind of impromptu cross episode thing, so we're going to go a little off the structure. But first and foremost, I'm Devin Ellington, DALE007 on Twitter. And then we also have Mr. @Sharky Nation here today. And then before we get too excited in all this, I do got to talk about Manscaped. It is our show sponsor. You're going to get 20% off and free shipping if you use promo code HoopBall20, HOOPBALL20. And then you can use that on the Lawnmower 3.0. Just came out, fully electric, waterproof, smooth, and it glides, and it will take care of that lawn problem. I should probably do some maintenance myself, but
likewise, by the way.
Yeah, there it is. And so use that promo code, and you can use it on their lotions and face stuff and all that good stuff. So manscaped.com, hoopball20 will get you the discount and the shipping taken care of. So, all right, we got 2 Thursday games, 1 college, 1 pro. The Falcons in a divisional game against the Panthers. They're going on the road. Then, honestly, I think I'm a little more excited for this game, and that's the Southern Alabama Jaguars going on the road to taking on the Georgia Southern Eagles. Sun Belt, Fun Belt. I'm excited for both. All right. Mr. Sharky, what do I call you? Is that too formal? Sharky?
There's numerous points, and I've gone through Twitter and I've gone through Instagram and I've gone through all the points of media agglomeration over the course of 2 years. It is @Sharks in Sports, but I prefer the Shark. And this is not to be conceited. This is actually an accreditation to my win rate over the course of 2.5 years on Twitter. And, I trust myself more so than really the sphere. And I love to do it. I love to bring out the picks and the heat and just the energy. And I was doing a video prior with Michael Jordan jump video, and I said, this inspired me when I was a kid. And, Devin and I were talking just off the record, and we were talking about our beards, how unbelievably masculine we look right now. And ultimately, when you look at masculinity, you look at the Sun Belt Conference. I mean, this is a showcase of secondary level football. And you made the comment, Southern Alabama versus Georgia Southern. And Georgia Southern -4, I think here in a window that is very difficult to predict. If I had to make a comment off the cuff, I think this line is ultra sharp. And I don't have a side here. Do you have a side here?
I actually did a game write-up for every game of the Sun Belt Conference, and this was one of my more favorite ones, just for the simple fact of the opponents that each team has played. The teams that Georgia Southern's won against was UMass. Look up their recent college football history. Campbell, the Camels, that should tell you something. And then UL Monroe, who's 0-7, last place in the Sun Belt.
Also true.
The only common opponent they had was UL Monroe, and South Alabama disposed of them a whole lot easier than what Georgia Southern did. But Georgia Southern runs that efficient ground game, that time of possession, clock control.
Absolutely.
So if Southern Alabama can't connect on their big plays, or Desmond Trotter can't move the ball in big chunks like he normally does, then you're going to see a little bit of a more tense game. But if that happens, I think both defenses are good enough to make it interesting. And Desmond Trotter's a better quarterback, in my opinion. Shea Wertz got hurt at the end of their last game last week, the quarterback for the Eagles. So this line's actually crashed down. I believe it was Southern Alabama 6.5 at opening. And, in my write-up, I locked them in at plus 5.5. I like them at plus 175 on the money line too. So.
Yeah, I think I just very generically scaled this per my usual analytics in the last 20 seconds as you were talking, because you're unbelievably eloquent quantity, and I love listening to you speak off the cuff. I think the over here might have some merit. I think that there's a very noteworthy point here with South Alabama. This is not the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is the South Alabama Jaguars. They've only played one road game this year, which is very interesting. And this goes back 5 games ago. They played a home game versus ULM, as you mentioned, who is really just absolutely down this year. And I think that the lines were not reflecting that. I think Vegas has mildly adjusted, but I think ULM is a perpetual fade this year. And, of course, Texas State is very inconsistent, home and away. There's in and out of big conferences, the whole thing. And but you go back to the opener at USM, Southern Miss. Shout out to Brett Favre, of course.
And Frank Gore Jr.
Oh, yeah, also.
Yeah.
We're in and continue that. However, in terms of their defense, on the road, 32-21 in the opener, 53, right? And then they go 51 at home, 52 at home, and then they cluster 2 unders, 50 and a 52. I think here, this line is coming up a little bit. I think Georgia Southern is a defensive squad coming off of a defensive battle at Coastal Carolina, who's obviously showcasing the class of the conference right now. This might come up. I think the short week, this might come up right now. I think if I had to make a comment, I think the over is probably the best side of the game here at 52.5. I think this probably moved a little bit. I don't have the analysis on that, but if you want to make a comment, or we could go further immediately.
One last little just tidbit about this. At the start of the recording, which was literally like 8 minutes ago, I think it was, Southern Alabama was getting 4. It's down to 3.5.
Yeah.
But that was the last it opened 53.5 for the total, but it's gone kind of up and down. It's waved a little bit. So I think it might settle right around 53.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, just a general market commentary. I do think that would be more so a public under. I think people do look at recency bias. They see a lot of low totals. And obviously I don't autopilot contrarian nature, but I just look at numbers. And I think, certain environments, especially, again, not having played a road game in 5 weeks, this could take on a completely new environment for this squad. So I think the over is probably the best thing. And, in fact, I might actually take that now that we're looking at it. And this is the beautiful thing about commentary. You start to see things that you wouldn't even look at.
Sure. And, like you said, I wasn't looking at the over either because I was locked in on the Jaguars. So now that you're talking about the over, what my analysis and what I felt in it is a little bit more constructed back forth. And so, a little more structure in it, and I like it. So I got a little more belief in it because the over would actually play to the advantage of the Jaguars. That means they're getting those big plays, and Desmond Trotter's running for 100 yards and throwing for 3 touchdowns and moving the sticks early and then on 3rd down. So, could be an exciting game tonight. Ready to talk some NFC South action?
Absolutely.
Right. Cool. So, as we mentioned before, the Falcons taking on the Panthers. Total opened at 51.5. It's not moved much. It's now at 51.5 still. The only thing that's moved is that little hook that was on the opening line. Falcons getting the 2.5 initially. It's down to 2. So you get further away from that key number if you like the Panthers side in this. I'm going to let you take this one heavily just for the fact that I love Teddy Bridgewater, so I have a little bit of a biasy. I love Matt Rule as a coach. So I need you to kind of guide me in any which way on this one and the listeners and viewers.
Yeah, I think that there's obviously – I made the comment prior on the Dad Bods podcast, a couple of my buddies, also Oklahoma State product, which I know you are, and it's a beautiful thing. This is a very difficult game just because inherently short week off 3 days rest, there's always ambiguity off the bat. And then you get a divisional opponent in a revenge game in a 3-game window with a coaching change. So the Falcons are hard to really discern here because we don't really know, and we're trying to figure out to the best of our ability, was Dan Quinn that much of just a toxic entity, energy, whatever you want to call it, within their locker room? And in a small window, it seems he was, really. They had the initial coach firing jolt, and they obliterated the Vikings on the road. And then they played the Lions, who are pretty representative. I mean, the Lions get a bad rap, but the Lions are pretty representative. They are very competent in just general football averages, and the Lions backdoored the hell out of them. They scored a touchdown with no time left. So the Falcons should have won 2 games in a row. And I think that ultimately when you look at the Panthers obviously have also lost 2 games in a row, but they did cover at the Saints. That's a big play up spot. And ATS covers matter. It's not always about just straight up analysis. It's ATS evaluation. And I've been all over the map with the Panthers this year. I love the Panthers. Some of my best ATS efficiency are Panthers and Cardinals, but it's moving in and out of their boxes, knowing when they're going to suck and when they're going to play well. And I think that ultimately, when you look at the Falcons, again, these are representative professional athletes. This is a revenge game. They lost by 7 at home, 23-16 in the Dan Quinn era. The paradigm may have shifted. And I think that they come in here and they catch, again, Teddy Bridgewater. I love him to death, but I think this is a nice little buy low on the Falcons tonight. I think it's a revenge game, short line, and it just comes towards the Falcons.
Yeah, and, just very shortly before we jumped on this production here, there was some commentary on a Twitter feed, and Giles from Oddshark was mentioning some props on Todd Gurley. The Falcons pass the ball 71% of the time, but that's just because of out of necessity. If they get the ground game going early and have success with it, I think they could easily stick with it. And, Gurley, if he doesn't fumble the ball, and one that I like his anytime touchdown. That's going to be chalk, but, it's almost guaranteed with the Panthers leaking, for fantasy's sake. I don't know what the exact football measures are, but I know they're one of the worst teams against running backs and give up a lot of the most production. So I'd like to check the red zone numbers a little more. I know both teams struggle with their red zone efficiencies, but the good thing about Gurley is he can stretch it for 20 and score off the sideline. So he doesn't really need to be, well, I guess that's still technically the red zone, 22 yards. He can take it to the house, So Teddy Bridgewater covers a lot of the times as far as his career goes. So I think I want to take I'm trying to figure out a total because I can't get away from the side. So I think I'm just going to play this with some fun prop bets. 2 TDs for Todd Gurley at plus 750. Again, Giles pointed that out over with Oddshark. So, I think that's probably where I'm going to be at tonight. I've got some fantasy players going, so I think this is just going to be a fun game for me to be a part of as far as a football fan and acting. So as far as the analysis, I think what you said is spot on as well. So, can't be complaining about none of that.
Yeah, and a final comment on that. I think that there's always just the beautiful thing about gambling in general is that it's not always a professional endeavor, right? It's fun to take something that is fun. Like, believe it or not, it's fun. I'll drink a White Claw to that, for real. And I like that. I like the buy low. I like the personnel analysis. And when it comes down to it, we were talking about a couple days ago, I think the over has slight merit too. I think that in a short week, there's always faux narratives. I think there's public narratives, just in general, that in a short week, everybody's going to suck. It's kind of like the snow game when they say like, oh, it's going to be like 3-0. And then all of a sudden it's 51-28. Usually the short week fatigue comes on the defense more so than the offense. The offense is running downhill on their ass, if we're being honest. Yeah. And I think that the over has some merit. And again, it's just a nice little spot to take maybe a prop, as you said. And I think just, per my analysis, I think Atlanta would be the side here if I had to really go on that angle.
Yeah, and, to speak to the over a little bit, just to talk about some efficiencies on both sides. Completion percentage for both teams was over 70 or 65%, and Carolina, with Teddy Bridgewater, they're at 72.22. As far as the defensive opponent completion percentage, 71% allowed by Atlanta, 68.9 from Carolina. And then they are also going to give up a little bit more red zone scoring percentage success. That might open it up for the offenses that are just right around 58 and 52% as far as success rate in the red zone. So maybe we see it open up a little more. Tired defenses, common foe. So
yeah, honestly, I think that when you look at recency bias, I think one of the good things you can look at in NFL football, of course, the small window, always 16 games, you get really nothing. But when you get a small window divisional matchup coming back 4 weeks later, and you see what was kind of a bloodbath, like defensive bludgeoning, but that was the Dan Quinn bullshit era. It was the end of the game.
Yeah.
And I think that the over does have merit here. And I think that your player props and your just general narrative in terms of the player efficiency does speak to an over as well. And I think the line also connects with that. You have, I think, a 49.5, 51 movement up. I think a lot of sharp action on that. And I think that off of 23-16, again, bloodbath, prerequisitively 3 weeks ago, this is a nice little over movement point connecting across the board.
Yeah. Also, when these teams last played, and this is all the rest I'll have on it, I had some, we were talking about some ATS stuff, and I just had a random sticky note with some fun notes on it. But when these teams last played, I think that was fresh with the Christian McCaffrey injury, and the teams, I think there was a couple of untimely turnovers on both sides of the ball. So keep that in mind. But yeah.
And honestly, now that I'm looking at it, I think, of course, one of the most difficult things, just as a prerequisite commentary point to public people following, and we love people listening to us, but I think it's hard to merge a total and a side. It's always hard because you're rooting for both sides. I do, and of course, but I do think the over is great. I think the Falcons probably on the side. If I had to weight one of the two, I think the over might actually be slightly better.
I think that's the opinion that I'm going to share with you on that as well. So the 8, are we good on this game, or did we gonna move on?
That's it for me on that one.
All right, cool. I'm fresh out there too, bud. All right, so just some ATS trends, or just things that I saw. I guess not trends. I thought they were really interesting because I was just doing some deep diving last night. There's only 2 teams in college football that are 0-4 or worse ATS. One is Kansas University, and the other is the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. So, and then Arkansas is the only team.
Well, let me make a comment.
Okay.
Les Miles seems to have less all his miles back at LSU.
Yeah.
This might be just one of those like sort of contract, like career Hall of Fame type of coaching environments for him. He is bringing absolutely nothing. And he had COVID. He's in and out of the box. I mean, the whole thing. I mean, it's one of the. And I made the comment to you on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
You're going on Twitter, of course, but in terms of just literally, editing nice little numerical things. But sometimes I don't love taking large scale context and just perpetuating them right into the box, because I feel like sometimes the situational analysis is ultra specific to the moment. And I think like with Kansas, I think they might just be an absolute grease fire. I think that just the coaching, again, Les Miles, and emotionally, he's kind of a funky dude. Like he's not the dude that just walks into the room and just immediately juices the people up. So take that to the point where he has COVID and he already lost the group potentially. I mean, this team might be an absolute disaster. And the other one, Western Kentucky, I mean, I don't know anything about their personnel, but I have tracked their ATS efficiency, and I've seen just sustainably absolutely horrendous. And with them, it's like, again, it's one of those situations where, especially with the smaller conferences, you realize personnel gaps year to year are huge. And that's where you see line movement, and you realize, like, just because this team beat them by 10 last year doesn't mean literally a single thing.
Right. Yeah. Like you said, it's ultra specific. And I guess the way I approach my analysis is ultra specific. So I'm looking very much so for something to use any kind of constructive data that I can.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I thought that was interesting. And, just to speak on the gaps in the playmaking or the positions and such, their running back, who's probably going to be going into the NFL, I think it's Puna Ford, Puna Williams. I can't remember.
Pronunciation. Yeah.
He's dynamic, and so I think that will maybe continue this grease fire a little bit more because Kansas ain't known for their deep recruiting classes. So
No, definitely not.
And then Western Kentucky, I think they've had a really, really tough schedule. So, but they've also been just terrible in some spots. There was
yeah. I mean, if you want to go into college football for a split second, I think that one side that is very interesting here is the now ranked 20th Coastal Carolina versus Georgia State over. And I think that I had last week, I didn't post it. I had probably had the under. I thought that would be off of a sequence of overs, just a cluster. And I think it was Georgia Southern, whoever they played, that played a really kind of just a bludgeoning football environment. I think this game kind of flips the script immediately, just in a one-off, coming right back. And I think that this is a really nice over at noon. Coastal Carolina traveling to Georgia State. Another comment within COVID, particularly, the road teams tend to score more points without crowd noise. That they can, of course, articulate their offense better. And I think this is a nice buy low on this total. I think it's coming up. I think it's mostly sharp action. And I looked at college football very loosely and want to plug the great Fusini, one of my men, of course, Devin Arlington, Sharky Waters Nation, collaborating for greatness and abundance. We were talking about this, and we were saying there's a couple sides that really, really jump in the early slate. And I think the first one would be the Coastal over. And again, it's always noteworthy when you look at numbers and you look at data analysis, and 1 week you have an under, and the very next week you have an over.
Yeah.
That should really stand out to people, and it should stand out to your own mind as well.
Sure.
Like where you're just like, that was 100% an under, and then here we are the next week, the same exact squad is 100% over. That's highly noteworthy.
Yeah.
Let me throw it back to you. Whatever you want to jump on there, we can go on there.
Well, first of all, you can't bring up the Chanticleers without expecting a comment from me. I love this team. I do. I could probably tell you way too much about them. First and foremost, I think what we're seeing, because it did open at 65.5 and it dropped immensely to 59.5.
When was that open? When was that open? Because sometimes the open is like pre-quarantine almost. So we were doing the NFL contest, and sometimes the open was so egregiously early.
Sure.
I don't know that for a fact.
So this was it was like just when William Hill put out Circa put out the lines once last week wrapped up.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think what the perception was, and I think it was kind of known knowledge, but maybe not to a lot of the public, that Grayson McCall, he was actually out. Their starting quarterback, who's
right.
best quarterback in regards of like QBR, which is like a 190, and then completion percentage is over 75%, I believe it is. Fact check, please.
Oh yeah.
Or right around there. But here's the thing: they have the backup quarterback in Fred Payton, who was the starter last year. So the fact that it plummeted because of I believe it's the quarterback thing that's happening with the market, just getting a little late on it. That's a great, great call, because I think that this kid that comes in, Fred Payton, he had 14 total touchdowns last year. 2 of them were rushing touchdowns, 63.6 completion percentage, and a 141.2 QBR. And the Chanticleers defense is great. So maybe they get an extra possession or two to put it in efficiently like they do. And I like the Chanticleers to roll. I got them at -2.5. It's up to a key number of 3 now. So, and then the over of 59.5, I think that's a great call. Georgia State gets loose and wild a little bit too. They have a fun rushing attack.
Yeah, exactly. And also just trusting the number, with the number holding court, even though, again, and it's very important, less so in the NFL. It's much less noteworthy in the NFL when you look back at last year because the rosters don't turn over nearly as much. And when you look at this number, I think it does show significant movement up in terms of recency bias for the way these teams have played. And I think you might get a track meet 100%.
And, to speak on that recency bias, with this quarterback playing this team, Georgia State beat Coastal Carolina last year. I think it was a 19-16 game, if I remember right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't think it's going to repeat, so
100%. And that's another great point to the recency bias idea. 1916, that's not exactly what we're looking at 65.5 at an open.
Right.
And this is where we are trying to be as sharp as we possibly can, which is looking at where sharp analysis, which is books laying lines. And oftentimes people don't understand this. And I always say this, but again, it needs to be repeated probably until ad nauseum 100 years from now. The books are not giving you free money. So they're not just saying, okay, so last year was 35 points. Now all of a sudden it's 65.5. So we're giving you 30 free points. They're giving you a template to the idea that this is going to be a vastly different style of football. And you have to take note of that and you have to adjust to it. And ultimately as a capper and as just a general intelligent person, you have to really, really take note of that.
Yeah. I can't say it better myself. There was another college football game that I was kind of looking at, and it's just because the total is so egregious. It's 82.5, and that's between Central Florida and Houston.
I saw that.
That's a big number. But I had to chop it down into 4 parts, and I've got some first quarter plays that I really like, based off what I've seen, based off what I'm looking at. But
yeah, please. Absolutely.
You said you saw this total. What was your initial reaction? Like, were you going to play it? Are you going to take the under?
My initial reaction is always, if something's so egregious, low or high, I like to take the egregious side. I would take the over, just because I think that, again, the Vegas lines are not giving free money to the supposed obvious idea that, oh my God, how can it possibly go over 83? And, Joe Public is always on the sexy under there. However, I have been tabulating, particularly big conference environments within the quarantine, and this is going back 4 or 5 years, not quarantine. Some lines are moving in the right direction for sharp analytics. However, they're just ultra sharp. And I think Houston and UCF are very, very sharply graded. I had Houston last week on the road, minus 15.5, and they covered by a hook.
Yeah.
So that should speak to the environment that they're in. UCF totals are razor sharp, and it's one of those things where, again, the commentary is sharp, but again, you are playing roulette on the final possession potentially.
Yeah. Just to speak a little bit further on the first quarter bets that I took, I'm probably going to take a stab at. I can't. Now that you talked about it in the sense of the egregiousness, I think it paints a better picture for me to maybe be a little more appeased about going about taking that bet. I heard your take on the Jets Chiefs thing, so just a correlative analysis there. So I like over 9.5 points for UCF in the first quarter. Houston, they're
is it reduced? If I can make, is that like 120, 130?
130. It's 130. Yeah. But
the one thing that is really important here is books, and trust me, I'm not a professional odds maker, but I've witnessed it. I've looked at it. I also played poker for 10 years in a casino, and I talked to a lot of guys that laid odds. When the total in a team total environment in a small window is holding to a lower total, but they're increasing the price. It's actually just trying to trigger public action on it. And I'm not going to say, like, of course, universally this play is left, right, or center, because anything could happen. However, I was talking to my brother, Old Man Who Bets, of course, plug always, man. However, he was taking a bunch of these things in MLB, team totals, and it would just get juice, but it would hold. And it would be like the Rays team total over 3.5.
Yeah.
135, 150, 160. And I'm like, why is the book not moving the line to 4? Because they know this line is ultra sharp and they're trying to encourage public action on the over. And I think with this type of thing, especially in a small window, especially given the environment of football in general, open and kick, you have the worst field position in the game, theoretically. So the first quarter, just like MLB, if we want to talk about it, the first inning, there's always a propensity for the pitcher to be just abstract, inconsistent, and unable to pitch. The first quarter of football is usually the under quotient. So don't necessarily say, like, they're going to score a lot of points, because usually there's an influx, but it's second, third quarter. And also, if you look at a lot of splits, again, historically, there's a lot of flatlining in the first and the third quarter and massive pop in the second and the fourth quarter. And it's because of just the kickoff, and it sets them back. And then also mentally, the defense is a little bit more forthright there, because they're like, okay, we have them pinned just by default.
Yeah.
And again, when you see that price skyrocketing versus a smaller total, that usually would be just a sign that it's probably a very sharp number to begin with. And it probably could be a sharp lean to the under, if anything.
Sure. I appreciate that look. That's why we have, like you said, your brother, Old Man Who Bets. That's why we have folks like you and him on here and do these collaborations, because, I don't have every insight, but I do like to at least try to give that to whoever listens and to myself.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that is, and just the mentality of that, the just the psychology of, that take right there. Yeah, absolutely. I like that. With that being said, I do like UCF to cover the -1 line for the first quarter for them to win. I got that even money. So I have like a little bit faith for them, just because I've seen Houston come out so just – and you see it with Dana Holgorsen teams. And that's – I've watched a lot of Big 12 football, obviously. He came in with West Virginia, and I like Dana Holgorsen. He was with Oklahoma State for some time. So again, this is the eye test versus recency bias, whatever you want to call it, gut, eyes, heart. It's all involved with betting. But yeah, I like UCF to maybe get it done in the first quarter, or not maybe, but to get it done in the first quarter.
Let me give it a quick look here.
Sure.
That is what, the American?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah, and the biggest piece of that is Houston gives up 12.7 first quarter points per game. UCF only gives about, I have it somewhere. Let me
pull it up here.
7.4. So
yeah, and also, before I even go into the actual like numbers and narratives of the game, I think that's a really intelligent point for people to just cap in general, where that number, what I was saying in terms of the price scaling versus a small window analysis, this could be, and I always talk to Smitty and Dino and a bunch of guys that I collaborate with in terms of just general, commentary in life. They're capping peripheral European soccer.
Yeah.
I know nothing about it, and they know nothing about it either. We don't know the players. We're not in the middle of Iceland right now, but they are able to discern what the line is saying, the price scaling versus the line in the small window versus the full game quantity. And it really gives you massive transparency to where the books want you to place money publicly, and also where theoretically the sharp side should be. And of course, I'm going to look at the game right now, and that's just a great comment, I think, for capping in general. So we got UCF coming in here. Okay, so 82.5 -3. Last year, What was the result last year in this game?
Ooh, off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you, but I could find it.
Okay, but we have UCF here. UCF is a really tough play in general because I think, as you made the comment, Dana Holgorsen, he's inconsistent as a coach, and therefore the team is also inconsistent. However, give them 60 minutes, they do play to the average. Yeah. There was 2 weeks ago, he flipped the fuck out at home. Yeah. And then immediately obliterated the team. Who was it? Tulane or something?
Tulane, yeah. Yeah, they scored 21 first quarter points or something like that. Yeah, it was ridiculous.
But remember, he flipped the fuck out.
Yeah, lost it.
And then they just immediately smacked him. Yeah. But again, you're absolutely right. He reminds me of what's his name? What's his name? Not Bobby Knight, but Huggins at West Virginia. In CBB, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. He's I'm going to call him out. He's an alcoholic. I mean, he drinks every day of his life. Yeah. And he's not in shape, but he's emotionally volatile. However, he gets them going. Yeah. He probably has a vodka tonic on the bench, but he's not getting them going out of the gate because he looks at the game like he looks at his life. Like, I'll get it together and I'll win later. And that's where, like, a guy like Holgorsen, I don't know if he's an alcoholic, literally, and I never make that comment, legitimately, but it's just evaluation in terms of, people's personalities and their energies and whatnot. Yeah. But I do think that he has that personality type where he's the type of guy that you would see at a bar and you let him walk in and you say, I'm not going to talk to him for drink 1, drink 2, drink 3, but drink 4, I might have an opportunity to talk to this guy. Yeah. And that's kind of how his team interacts with him. Yeah. They know he's going to get juiced in the second, third, fourth quarter. And I think that given all that just pure psychological analysis, I think that there's a good fade spot for Houston here. I think UCF could come in here and blast them in the first half specifically. I think the back door is wide open for Houston.
Yeah. Well, just to speak on the 2019 results, on top of all that, because, it's very, very synonymous and, the inconsistencies you see here, I'll just kind of rattle it off. Last year's game, first quarter, 17 points Houston was putting up in the first quarter. UCF, though, scored 14. And then the second and third quarter, Houston scored 6 points. And then they scored 6 points in the fourth quarter. So the inconsistencies, UCF scored 21 in the third. They won 44-29. Their only fourth quarter points was a safety.
Yeah. And I mean, even that spot, just at that deficit, 44-29, of course, to be laying only 3 is obviously short versus that environment. And the one thing that I've noticed, this is going back 5, 6, 7 years in college football, before I was on Twitter even, when there's a conference rivalry game and a team wins at home and they come on the road and they still lay, it usually speaks to just ultra sharpness and potentially a public side take on the favorite, even in the revenge side spot. And the movement is really huge because if you look at the small conferences, there's more movement. Oftentimes in the small conferences, you'll see a team that got, like Air Force last week versus San Jose State was a great example. Nevada versus Wyoming. There's more transparency. And I also think that just as a very general comment, that's probably why it's more transparent and better to bet small conferences. The big conferences are sharply graded. I do think UCF comes down here. It's more so, do they come down enough to not win the game? Right. And then all of a sudden, and this is where, again, Gray Fusini is one of my real confidant guys, and I love him to death. He's very contrarian, almost autopilot sometimes. He would just take Houston blindly. And I'd be like, the problem is UCF is still laying points here. So Vegas, even in the revenge spot where theoretically Houston should play a huge home game, UCF is still laying points. And that's a problem. You would prefer this to be Houston laying 1 or a pick, because then professional odds makers are telling you there is legitimate transparency to an outright win here.
Right. It's really important to note, and, second, what you said in regards to kind of understanding how and why the books are doing what they're doing, and understanding the undertones of decision-making and just human nature that goes into all of it. And a guy we have on the show quite regularly, John Ryan, which I'm not sure if you've seen any of his Twitter stuff, but great data guy. And, he talked about the humanality yesterday. So it's really cool to kind of keep the dots connecting. Did you have, what other college football games are you super stoked for? Or, do you want to transition to some NFL?
One play I haven't finalized, and again, it is Thursday at 11:55 a.m. on the East Coast here. However, this is the beauty of the opportunity of sports content and commentary within Twitter, and I appreciate you. You appreciate me, and it's reflective and it's great. One thing I was really looking at was UTSA. This, of course, Texas San Antonio.
The Roadrunners.
First half specifically. And it was a dynamic that I looked at. And again, I don't have it up on my screen. I looked at it a couple days ago. But it was something which is what I oftentimes look at is where a team plays either really poorly at home first half, again, without fans. And then therefore the same corollary flips completely on the road where they can't come out. There's no fans. They're like, what are we doing? Like, what's going on? They tank. And then the coach is like, guys, come on. But on the road, they're like, there are no fans, so we don't have to go into the hostility factor. Right. And this is, of course, I think it's a road revenge game. I think the line is scaling against the home team here versus the previous environment. And again, I don't have it up on my screen, but I think that UTSA first half is just like that number and narrative spot, which could really hold some weight. And last week I had one, I didn't post it, but it was UTEP first half at Charlotte. Very similar. Charlotte was 3-0. They hadn't played a home game yet, which is, of course, absurd, but it is 2020, quarantine, whatever you want to call it. Charlotte was 3-0 ATS first half on the road, which again is that dynamic, that psychological dynamic. They come out well when there's no fans. They're like, this is our game. There's no fans. Let's fucking ball. Right. Then they came home, first game of the season after 6 weeks. And UTEP came in there. I think it was a revenge game off the previous matchup. And the line really actually didn't give a lot of transparency there. The line was still scaling towards Charlotte, but it was tied at the half. And I was talking to Fusini about it, and I was like, just purely in the psychological dynamic, when a team is playing in and out of the box, home and road without fans, there is a deep psychological dynamic there.
Yeah, and just to speak on the UTSA and Florida Atlantic game a little bit more, because that's honestly a game I'm pretty juiced for. I'm glad you brought it up. I love this UTSA team. I've talked about the quarterback Frank Harris a couple times on the podcast and some articles. I actually wrote this game up in the First Looks article over on hoop-ball.com. So I like this UTSA spot. It went from at opening line, it was like 6.5 down to 5. The movement just as the market opened last week. In the total's at 47.5, and I think you have to take into account Hurricane Zeta. It's currently hitting the East Coast right now. Good point. Betting is betting, but weather can affect betting. Say what you want. It's kind of dorky. I'm into betting and officiating stats too, like ATS and percentages with certain refs and weather conditions.
Oh yeah. No.
So
I don't know if you interact with the great Fusini, but he's one of my good friends from high school actually. So we're very personal friends. He loves that stuff too. Yeah. Weather, coaches, refs, whatever you want to call it. The one thing I will say to that, and I actually was calling him going back about a week ago, he got pissed off at me, and I was joking with him. I was saying, you're getting a little public because public is just narrative, just by definition, it's narrative. It's not numerical, it's not peripheral, whatever. And he was like, "No, dude, it's good." And same thing with you. I know it's good.
Yeah.
I just take myself back, and the one thing that I just trust myself in what I think is the books are compounding that dynamic into the line.
Mm.
And when people start to think they know better than the line, they're actually acting as if they know the Vegas lines didn't already take that into account.
Sure.
And that for just as a standout point is just how I think. And I won't adjust my analytics because of a narrative, even if it is strong and smart. Just my point.
Yeah. Well, I locked the under in at 53.5 based alone of, the fact of these two defenses. And then Florida Atlantic's inability to move the ball. I think without Lane Kiffin in there kind of masterminding it. Willie Taggart, but look at what he did offensively with Florida State and 5-star recruits. They struggled to score 20 points a game. And, he's doing it in a smaller scale now at Florida Atlantic. They struggled mightily against Marshall last week. But just to, tie a bow on the college football stuff, and then we'll talk a couple NFL games. I want to just throw – we talked Charlotte, throw Charlotte out there. I like them going on the road against Duke. Iowa State, Kansas, I like the total to go under 52. And then we already talked about the UCF Houston game. Those three games are going to be what I write for my next article. That'll be coming up really, really shortly. So
absolutely.
I've got a really interesting NFL game I want to take a look at. But I got to talk about mybookie.ag first before I do that. That is the show's other sponsor. If you use Hoopball, HOOPBALL, to get your initial deposit bonus, we would greatly appreciate that. You've got great customer service and so many different things you can bet on. You can play poker and blackjack. And my grandma and my dad's got one. I signed them up. So Hoopball is the promo code. Use that at mybookie.ag. Bet, win, get paid. All right. I want to talk about Tennessee taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. Have you looked at this game at all?
I have looked at every game in a next year.
Perfect.
So this game, I'll throw it to you because you obviously want to discuss it.
Okay. All right. So
tell me what you got. I mean, let's go, man. Come on.
I think Tennessee gets back on track here. That game that they lost because of Gostkowski against the Pittsburgh Steelers does not, it's not conducive with who they are, in my opinion, other than the fact that he almost lost a game for them earlier in the season. But, Joe Burrow just had a battle last week. He's so close to getting all these NFL wins, but they keep escaping him. Joe Mixon's banged up. So I like Tennessee to come in here and be efficient offensively and run the ball. Speaking of which, Carlos Dunlap was just traded, the anchor on that defensive line and the centerpiece for the Bengals. So I'm looking for Henry to maybe pop off for 180. And then, them not have to rely on Gostkowski. So that's my general first opinion on that game. I want to hear what you
I think that, one of the things that I really dislike about the game in general is I feel like I think that Tennessee is very enigmatic against the spread, specifically. They were 0-3 against the spread with 3 outright wins, which is it's just very unique. That doesn't really usually happen. Like, you're not usually, particularly as favorites, particularly as a team that beat Tom Brady in Gillette in his last game as a Patriot last year. This is a pretty representative football squad. They obviously went 5-0. They came back and they laid down in the first half off, a really significant 3-game sequence here. I'm looking at it. 42-16 Bills, 42-36 divisional game against a fired coach bump Texans. They came out and, the Steelers blasted them in the first half, and they probably should have backdoored it. They probably should have backdoored it. Gostkowski wins that kick. They had all the momentum. They should have backdoored it.
Yeah.
And, of course, I had Texans, so I'm a little biased there. But
yeah.
Probably should have backdoored it. And the problem I have with this game against the spread, first of all, just as a very generic comment, -6 road with a good team versus a supposed bad team is so stock. It's just like you're just flirting. You're just always flirting, you know? And, of course, the Bengals have been way too hot against the spread. Joe Burrow has been living the rookie life to the max. It's just tough. I mean, I can't trust the dynamic that the Titans have put forth here with, Broncos no cover, Jags no cover, Vikings no cover, Bills blowout, all 3 non-covers, so they had to cover. Then they got lucky against the Texans in overtime to really cover, and they got blasted. And again, the Bengals, I mean, I think the Titans win the game. I just think the Bengals are fairly representative, and they're just annoying, like if it really comes down to it. And you just don't want to fade teams like that, especially in their home stadium. And, the Titans are in a weird window. I'm looking at the schedule now. Off of a Steelers loss, of course, that was not divisional. Bengals, not divisional. Then they get Bears, not divisional. Colts, revenge game on Sunday Night Football in 3 weeks. Actually, not a revenge game. The Shark is not in his element. This is not a revenge game. This is the first matchup of the season. That might be a playoff spot. The thing is, the Titans are getting a gift-wrapped schedule. And we always talk about, why, of course, the Patriots played the Colts every single year with Peyton and Tom Brady, championship schedules. The Titans right now could actually go 13-3, not playing anybody. I'm looking at their schedule. Let me just go right down this. Bengals, not good. Bears, not good. Colts, mediocre. Ravens, stalwart. Colts again. So Colts twice. That's some representative games. Browns, not good. Jags, not good. Lions, not good. Packers, good at Texans. So they play 2 good teams all year.
Yeah.
And it's
I was just going to say, ending, I was just thinking of that last game at Houston. Hopefully that's not a sour grape. Deshaun Watson, last week, you don't know what could happen with that Texans team. That is a really good point on their schedule because I hadn't really looked at it that far out. Didn't realize how good they had it. I think they might split one with the Colts. Their defense is – I thought Malik Hooker was going to be a huge hit to them, but they're still they're still playing really dang good defense, better than the Ravens actually, in a couple different metrics if I remember right. Don't know the exact ones, but I know I saw some I was looking through. Let's pivot over to – or did you have any other opinion on this game? Did you want to talk about another one before we wrap?
Well, if you want to talk about NFL, I mean, I went to NFL. I have a couple leans here, which I think are significant.
Yes.
I like the Raiders here fading the Browns.
Yeah.
And I just like in general the way the Raiders have played kind of up and down week to week. And of course they played really far up, probably way above their average at KC to win outright by 8 points as a significant dog. But then of course they came back home against Tom Brady and got blasted 45-20. And I think the Browns, if you look at what they did against the Colts, that 32-23 win, it was one of those games where, a lot of the games in the NFL, of course, this is gambling. There's small window opportunities that can be totally opportunized and not. And the Browns completely opportunized that game. The Colts really could have won that game. And the Browns are just absolutely smoking hot right now. I think it's a great little buy low on the Raiders. They played well out of the division in week 1 against the Panthers. People thought the Panthers sucked. The Panthers do not suck. So for them to win 34-30 in week 1 at the Panthers is actually fairly representative. And I think it's a nice little buy low. Going further, next game, I think a really nice spot here, which we should talk about. I'll throw it to you. Tua in his debut. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm excited. There's a lot of pieces of the Miami team that I've liked that I was hoping that they could maybe make work. I like the coach. I do like Brian Flores. but to talk a little bit about that Raiders pick, I'm glad you like it because that was one of my. I went with 2.5 over on. It was one of my analyst picks over on Tally site. It was one I had a pretty decent confidence amount in. I think what we saw last week was that whole debacle with the offensive line and tight ends. I mean, they lost like just about everybody. So I think, like you said, how they go from week to week, this is a great spot for them to bounce back, especially after OBJ being lost. Dolphins, I want to watch this game just for the simple fact that Tua is starting. I want to see this kid play. I want to see how that hip looks. Apparently, he looked good in limited time, last week when he went in, but, it was he was probably a little more comfortable. I want to see what kind of game plans installed for him. I want to see just how they work Myles Gaskin in with him. I think they could do some really fun power option kind of stuff with Myles Gaskin back there, pull some guards and get moving horizontally. So, as far as the side total, anything like that, I haven't looked at it on this game. Did you have an opinion on any of the numbers?
Yeah, I mean, actually, when I went through it, and again, this week, and I think as we go forward in the NFL, and I made a comment the other night with the dad bods who are currently not working out and just drinking seltzers to further their dad bod quantity. However, I think that this is a really good fade of the Rams. Mm-hmm. And I think that when you really look at what they've done, it's kind of like the Steelers who have played a bunch of crap. The Steelers have not played anybody, and the only good team they played was the Titans, who were also way too good. Mm-hmm. So the Rams have played 4 games against the NFC East. And they're coming off a win against the Bears, and the Bears were actually massively overvalued versus any sort of peripheral narrative or number. So now you get the Rams traveling to the Dolphins. Hold that thought based on the fact that they are coming off of a win on a short week against the Bears, 24-10. And then you look at their next couple of games. I mean, this is just the ultimate trap. Next game, they get the Seahawks at home. Then they get the Bucks in prime time. Then they get the Niners. Then they get the Cardinals, the Patriots. I mean, this is like the ultimate letdown spot. I mean, I think the Dolphins win without really any question. And I think that another point that's really standout is that this is not going back to 98 where Peyton Manning came to the league and he had growing pains out of Tennessee. He's coming to the league. It's a different product. The college football, especially at the top level, Clemson, Alabama in particular, have conflated with NFL scheme and general strategy so much, and also training, where these guys come in the league, they fucking slay it. Look at Justin Herbert. Look at Joe Burrow. I mean, they slay it. Like, this is not some sort of growth curve crap, in my opinion. Yeah. And I think that, like, when you really look at it, it's just an absolute sharp take on the Dolphins.
I can't agree with you more there. After hearing you talk about it, I've just kind of been glancing over. I like the fact, it's plus 160 from what I'm seeing right now on the Dolphins money line. So, that's worth a good little dart stab to me. The Rams, that schedule is not going to be working out for them here coming up. I might try to trade Cooper Kupp off my fantasy team. So thank you for that. Well, maybe not. Seahawks pass defense is terrible.
Oh yeah. And just one more comment before if you want to wrap it up.
Sure.
The other game that I really like, and I think that this is definitely a contrarian, maybe not. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a contrarian. I'm just the shark. But Ravens minus 3.5 at home. Yeah. And I've been checking, I said it last week, I've been checking the quality of the Steelers. And, when it comes down to it, the Steelers are hovering on a ledge. They cannot sustain this. This is statistically a massive anomaly. You're not going to go 6-0 against the spread. You're not going to go 16-0 against the spread. You're not going to go 6-0. You're not going to go 16-0 straight up. And the Ravens are sitting here waiting to just obliterate this squad, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like that because, well, Devin Bush is out, as we know. He was lost last week. I think we're going to see a heavier impact this week, him not being there and the holes being more exposed. And then it makes sense for the Ravens to give the Steelers their first loss, trying to come in to Baltimore and get a divisional win. And then it puts them out of tie up at the top of the North. And, as far as – and you say what you want about Narrative Street, but I take narrative into it in some account, like I said, because like you said, Fusini.
I 100% agree. I think that narratives, particularly in professional football, like the polar opposite would be, of course, baseball, where there's no narrative. It's just like the guy's going to get better. He's batting 220 over 500 at bats, whatever. Football there's a lot of narrative. So I don't mean to cut you off, but 100%. I couldn't agree more.
It all kind of correlates back in with that, mentality and all that good stuff, because narrative's created by humans. So that's just kind of where I'm at on that game. I think that was a good call. Might put Baltimore into a 3-point teaser, tease them down to a pick, just to be safe. Got a couple of those I'm looking at. But yeah, I think that taps my football data bank for what I've looked at so far. I need to refill it. I've got some college digs I'm excited to get into, as well as some more pro games. Do you have any other last, game tidbits, things you want to plug, throw out there?
Just one comment, and I think, we can sign off and probably run this back, because it was great. I love talking to you, really. This is great stuff. I think that we were just very loosely talking about the Giants on Monday Night Football being a really scrappy home spot for the Bucs, who have been a little too hot, a couple of big opportunities on the road. Of course, not necessarily the number. Again, dynamics, not the number. It is professional football. It's not MLB baseball July 20th with no other sports. So I think just one comment, maybe the Giants, but truthfully, for me and what I'm going to drop on my podcast, and also what I really believe in here on this particular week 8, it's Dolphins, Ravens, and one other play. Actually, Vikings. And I like fading Rodgers here in a trap spot. They have a lot of look-ahead games. It's a revenge game. I think the Vikings play better on the road, some more dynamic emotionally. So I'm going to close it out, and that's it for me.
Well, hey, bud, I appreciate that. I'm going to look into that Minnesota one a little bit more. It's always fun to fade Rodgers when you can. It's a little more sweatier than the normal quarterback, but it makes it fun. Hey, like I said, I appreciate it again. It was great to have you on, and then also to do this collaborative thing. I know we're running live for your Twitter and stuff, so it's just honestly, it's kind of like a new one-of-a-kind kind of deal. It's football gaming, so, and that is a phone ringing, so that the bell is ringing, bud. So, all right. Well, hey,
we got to go in on that other shit.
Yeah. There you go. Well, guys, this was a Hoopball Gaming presentation, as well as having Sharky Nation on. So check us out on Twitter. I know you can always find this wherever you want: Spotify, iHeart, Twitter, everything. So thanks again, guys, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.